We originally met when we were 5 years old. We've known each other our entire lives. In Dayton, Ohio, that's where we grew up. And we went to elementary school together. We, we dated in high school. So we're very familiar with one another. He went off to college and got married.
No, you got married first.
I know, well, I'm
Okay.
talking about you right now.
Oh, okay.
So getting you to Texas.
Okay.
He got married after he had moved to Texas. Was able to get on with as a civil contractor. I got married. Traveled with my ex-husband because he was a military person. Moved back to Ohio, and eventually I was able to move here to Texas, originally through Dallas, then to Houston. So,
All right.
been here since 1998.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that you've kind of set the tone that both of y'all were married at some point and
Yeah.
now are married together,
Yeah.
I've got to, it begs the question now. So how did y'all two now? Y'all knew each other early on. Now how did y'all's paths cross again afterwards?
Well, we've always been friends. I mean, like I said, from 5 years old, and this was my first friend in nursery school. So you learn how your social skills develop through friendship. In order for her to play with me, I had to accommodate her wishes. So that meant I played house, and that way she played cowboys and Indians. So you had to learn how to give and take, and that set the tone for our relationship. Like I said, we've always been friends, and eventually we started dating in high school, and after we graduated, she went to get married, and then I came to San Antonio in '84, and I was married, and both of those marriages dissolved, and because we've always been in contact with one another, we got to get back together again, and it was almost like it.
Well, you gotta tell. We got back together because his dad was sick.
Oh, okay, that was that story.
His father was ill, and my best friend back in Ohio, she was telling me that his dad was sick, and so I was communicating with his dad through her, and he found out that I lived in Texas, and he was like, "Oh, you gotta give Johnny a call. He's down there also," and so that's how we ended up hooking back up after a number of years and stuff. So that was our pathway back together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what was the gap in years between y'all last dating and then y'all coming back together?
So that would be 78 to 99. So that's 22 years.
Yeah.
But there were stretches where we had lost contact, but for the most of the part, we had some form of, hey, how you doing? She was working back at the hometown, and when I'd go home to visit my parents, I'd stop in and say, hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And how's life treating you? Okay, well, we're good. We're doing this, and okay, talk to you later, and we're going about our ways.
Yeah.
So
we had contact with one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And so just right quick we kind of transition into the crux of this. I just wanted to kind of get a feel for both of you. This may be individual, this may be together. If you can kind of tell a little bit about more so y'all's individual upbringing, some of the important figures in each of y'all's lives, whether it was parents or other influential folks, and then how that kind of translates for you today, where you are, and this will segue into our next.
Ooh, let's see. Most importantly would be my parents. I'm an only child, so my circle of influence is relatively small. Born and raised in a middle-class environment, and parents, basically, my mother's an only child, and my father only had one brother, so my family was relatively very small. Circle of influence would probably be various teachers and my pastor from church. And I think, never forget it, Reverend Brown, Charles Brown gave a sermon one day. He said, there comes a time in a person's life where he has to get on about the business of living. And I said, you know what? I think that's what I need to do. I want to go ahead and move to San Antonio and start my career in a job that I knew nothing about. But because of my faith, I said, I'm going to give it to God, and we're gonna process this thing through.
Thank you.
I'm an only child also. I later on in life found out that I was adopted by my parents, so I have no knowledge of my birth parents. I just know that my birth mother was white and my birth father was black, and the town that she lived in was a very racist town, and so her parents thought it would be best if she put me up for adoption, which she did when I was 16 months old. And my parents that I grew up with, they adopted me when I was 18 months old. And that was when the final adoption went through.
Yeah.
So my circle of influence would be my parents. My dad was my everything. He's the one who taught me how to go about living and how to do things, and how just to try to be confident in who I am and what I do and stuff. And so teachers were influential in my life. I had some very, very influential teachers in elementary school and in high school. Unfortunately, I did not complete college, so I do not have that collegiate experience like he does and stuff. So, but it helped me get through what, my background.
Absolutely. And just real quick, you mentioned that your real mother's parents had kind of had her put you up for adoption. Did your biological father play kind of any part into this that you know of?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the opportunity to get my adoption records, and every time I say I'm going to do it, I back out.
Yeah.
I guess it's the fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
So I keep saying, yeah, I'm going to do this because I want to find out,
Yeah.
if maybe I do have some siblings out there that, I could try to connect with and
Absolutely.
stuff. My birth mother was very young when she had me. She was only 16, so she still might be alive today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
And when did you find out? You said later in life you found out you were adopted. How old
Yeah,
were you?
I was, I want to say close to 35.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I asked my mom why they did not tell me. And her answer was that the social worker said that if I did not display a curiosity or think that I was not their biological child, it was up to her to say, to tell me or, just let it go. And so because I never thought anything about it,
Yeah.
she just, let it go because she didn't know how
Yeah.
to come out and tell me.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really powerful stuff. And this kind of segues into my next question, which is kind of like the bread and butter of this is, so when this project came about, when you heard about this project, why did you decide to share your story either collectively or individually? If you can just speak to that, both of y'all, with regards to today.
Well, first of all, received the notification through a good friend of mine, and also being a graduate of an HBCU, Knoxville College, Knoxville, Tennessee, class of '83, I felt compelled to be a source to help and to advise those behind me. You know, sort of like the poem, The Bridge Builder, and that has always stuck with me. You know, the basic concept with that poem is, you know, gentleman was building a bridge, and that he had already crossed the chasm, and somebody stopped by and said, "Why are you building this bridge? You passed this area. You don't have to worry about it." I said, "I don't do it for me. I do it for those behind me, to make life a little easier for them."
When my husband is passionate about something, I don't ever try to discourage him, and I try to participate as much as I possibly can. So when he told me about this, at first I was reluctant, because I'm not very comfortable sharing stuff about myself.
Sure.
But then I also thought that, yes, this is our story might be able to help somebody, you know, if they face the same kind of situation.
Yeah.
So
If I can lead to the next thing, what may be some of those specific situations or experiences that you feel like you've gone through life on, and you mentioned for the folks behind you that may be coming after. What are some of those, if just one or so, like an experience or situation that you still hold to this day, but you reflect on and you feel has been really impactful?
In terms of,
In terms of, it could be why maybe you came to share the story, whether it was a situation or experience that you feel may have driven that, or you just feel that it's something that I feel would be valuable for those who are listening or those who are coming, the younger generation coming.
well, let's see. We talked to,
our story is about a traveling situation we had where we were pulled over in a small town in Texas. What happened was we were heading to Knoxville College for his homecoming. And it's in the middle of the night,
2:30.
and we driving down US 59 or Texas 59, and we're in the town of Atlanta, Texas. And when I made a left-hand turn to continue on the highway. And when you in the small towns, they turn into 4-lane roads.
Yeah.
They're not highways. They're 4-lane roads.
Yes, ma'am.
Police officer pulled me over and stated that I stayed in the left-hand lane after turning too long. He was in the passenger seat asleep. Pulled us over, and first thing out of his mouth was that, "Well, I'm pulling you over because this is a known drug route." We're two middle-aged people. Now, I know middle-aged folks carry drugs, but, you know, I just got off of work. We've been on the road for close to, 3 hours by then?
About 3 hours.
About 3 hours, and all we wanted to do
After
was...
picking up the car from,
after picking up the car. We just wanted to get to Texarkana to pull over for the night.
now we just picked up this car, rental car. So this is not even our car.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he called for backup, and they brought a K-9 unit. Asked me to get out of the car.
And come to the back of the car and tell me, "I need for you to keep your hands on the dashboard and don't look back." It's 2:30 at night. 2:30 at night, and you got my wife in the back, and you making it impossible, or trying to make it impossible for me to see what's actually going on. So right now, emotions just building up. So I said, okay, I take the rear view mirror, swing it around. I said, I'm gonna do this, but I'm actually gonna be able to witness as much as possible through the rear view mirror. So now, okay, so.
Then after that, well, I'm in the back, and they said, the second officer is like, okay, I am a K-9 unit. Will you give us permission to search your car? At this point in time, I'm like, well, I could say no, but I just want to get out of this situation. I know that I don't have anything on me. I know that he doesn't have anything. So I'm like, okay, fine. You can search the car. They pull the dog out, but before they take the dog around my car, they put something under the dog's nose. Then there's a third car. Wasn't there a third?
No, it's just two.
Just two? I thought it was a
But
third. But they pull him out. He gets out of the car.
And so I tried to explain to them, we just picked this car up from International Airport at Bush International Airport 3 hours ago. I cannot vouch what was in this car before we got this car. We don't even know if this car had been properly cleaned out. You know, you hear stories of people leaving guns, and I found all sorts of telephone, cell phones have been left in cars. You never know what you might find in a car. But to put that on, I said, how about we pull our luggage out? No, leave the luggage in. So then they start pulling everything out the car. Clothes, all sorts of things getting thrown out the car.
Well, that came.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because he was talking to the officer, and the officer did not like the way he was talking to him. I'm standing behind everything, and I see the officer unholster his gun. And at that time, I'm like, I got to get him out of this situation. So I tell him, I was like, come back. I said, come with me.
You didn't say it like that. Say it like you said. Say it like you said it. Now, don't nice it up for these folks.
I was like, I told him to shut up and hold me. I was like, I don't care. You don't say another damn word.
That's what it was. Don't say another damn word. Don't say nothing. Just come back, hold me, and shut your hell up.
Because they were ready to pull their guns out.
So this is over 50 years I've known this woman, and
I've never talked to him like that.
Never. At no time. Matter of fact, I've always been her protector. In nursery school, she had bullies. I'd take care of the bullies for her. But she talked to me like that. So I think I better listen. I think it'd be in my best interest to just shut up and listen.
So then, as that was going on, that's when they were taking the dog around. The dog started pawing at the trunk of the car. So they pulled the luggage out. They didn't throw your clothes on the ground.
They didn't pull the luggage. They pulled it so they can.
No, the luggage was out. Yeah, the luggage was out. They put it out, and then my clothes got thrown on the ground. They took everything out. Then they took the dog back behind the second patrol car, put something else under the nose, took the dog back around the car, and said, "Oh, it was a false positive," you know.
Reaction.
Yeah. So just be warned that, you know, we're gonna let you go, no problems, but just be careful and be aware. You know, they were saying, I don't even know what all they were saying, because at this point in time, I'm nervous and I just want to get away.
Yeah.
I just want to get away because I didn't know whether they were going to lock us up, kill us, or what could have happened that night. And by the time it finished, we were in this for like over an hour.
About an hour and a half.
On the side of the road in Atlanta, Texas.
With no one, hardly anyone driving by. So, you know, it would have easily been their word against ours, as the classic story goes nowadays. And again, like I said, just shaken from the anger and the what ifs and what could have beens.
And to this day, if we're driving to go back to Ohio or go to, we always make sure that we go through Atlanta, Texas during the day. We'll not go through there, or it's just turning to evening, but we will not go through that stretch of 59 or 69 as they call it now, because that left a very harsh memory. You just don't know the what ifs. And the bad thing about it was when we were coming back through there, it was the same cop. He had another car pulled over in the same area. Now, there was another black couple that he had pulled over out of their vehicle. And it was like, what is it? I can't say for sure if they targeted, but it felt like they were targeting, because if they would have, once he pulled me over and I explained that, hey, I was in the process of getting over, he could have let me go. But because we were black, I believe that that's why they went through the extra stuff.
Yeah. And what year was this, or how long ago was this?
This was in,
About 2000.
Yeah.
It had to be around 2000.
2000.
Yeah.
And so, such a kind of like a traumatic experience, to this degree, from each of y'all's lives, had y'all ever maybe experienced something like that up to that point, or ever seen someone close to you have an experience? Didn't have to be like a pullover or anything like that, but that type of experience where it really kind of just shook you, it just.
Well, not per se that was my first experience with the police in that manner.
Yeah.
But we grew up in high school. Our hometown, Dayton, Ohio, was pretty segregated during the time we were going through there. And it was basically separated at the river, Miami River, where the blacks stayed on the west side of the river and the whites predominantly stayed on the east side. So I selected a school that was on the east side, and it was so bad, so many of us black students were attending the high school. It was so bad that we had police escort the first week going in and coming out. I remember one time we were in class after lunch, and I looked across the field and I saw my classmates running full tilt across the field. Why are they running so fast? I looked behind them, there were a group of white men chasing them with bats and chains and all sorts of things right behind them. I said, oh my gosh, that was my first experience dealing with that type of racism. So yeah, I've seen more than I care to see. How about that?
Yeah.
My first experience with racism, came in high school also, but it was in my sophomore year, because my freshman year in high school, I went to a school that was diverse. We were mixed. You had an equal number of black and white students there. Then court-ordered desegregation came down. So they took everybody that was in our neighborhood and said, okay, you're going to be bused to either, there was two different high schools, Belmont and Wilbur Wright. I was one of the people that got bused to Wilbur Wright High School. My first, we were in school one day, and I remember vividly where the teachers came in, they said, we're having early dismissal. And it wasn't a day that was supposed to have early dismissal. Well, word had came out that a group of gang members or, white gang members were going to come up to the school and attack the black students. They called in all the buses to get us out of the school. And we got on the bus, And the route that the bus had to take to go over to our side of town, there's one, couple of overpasses. And we were told to keep that, we had to ride the whole way until we crossed into the black side of town. We had to ride with our heads down below the windows because they didn't know whether they were going, if anybody was going to be on the overpasses throwing rocks at the buses or bricks or anything else. And that was my first experience. The second time was where I was after school, and I was involved with dramatic arts, and I was having play practice, and there was basketball practice was going on, and I was going down toward the gym because it was somebody I needed to talk to, and I saw, it was like five white guys come through, and they had chains and bats and 2x4s, and they were just walking through looking for people to attack. And the way our school was designed, I was able to get through the gym, and I was told one of the coaches what was going on, and then I got back on up toward the front of the school, and my friend, I told her, I said, get your stuff, we're getting out of here. And at that time I was driving, so it was like, we just left out of there because didn't know what was going to happen. So that was back in the 70s. It was very, very scary times because you just didn't know who was going to do what at that time, especially when you're on the other side of town where you're not supposed to be.
So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak.
Exactly, and this kind of segues into the next part, but one thing that you said with regards to, you don't know who is going to do what, and from your most recent story with regards to being, pulled over, I feel that throughout your lives, even up till today, that's something that still holds true.
Yeah, it does.
It's something that doesn't seem to have left at any point or at a certain time period in a year. It just ended with that. It seems to be kind of consistent. I wanted to just touch upon the idea of, we talked about these events, these traumatic experiences, but I want to kind of go into kind of like the final portion of this in terms of the impact of that on your life, whether it was this event that happened when you're in high school or it's this that happened when you're middle-aged at the beginning of the millennium. How do these events, or even just one of them, impact you differently than they did when you were at a certain age, or how do you kind of carry it now, like in light of just your life going forward from this?
For me, I'm not as trusting. I pretty much don't give anybody the benefit of the doubt like I would. After high school, you just chalk that up for childish stuff, and you're just like, okay, well, whatever, it's done, it's over with, I'm going on with my life. But after getting pulled over by the cops for nothing, I don't trust anybody. And in today's society, it's even worse because back in the early 2000s, yeah, we got pulled over and it could have been a tragic situation, but I think there was a little bit of restraint held. Now there's no restraint. And I don't know, I honestly could not tell you if I would come out alive if I got pulled over by a cop now. I don't know, because they don't value, if you're of a certain color, your life is not valuable. I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel. I don't feel that they think of you as a person that has a family, that has, a life. You could just be you just committed a stupid little mistake by, maybe you didn't stop fully at a stop sign. but you know, you don't know if you're gonna come out of that situation alive.
Yeah.
We had an incident. Now, my son is a troublemaker, and you know, he's hasn't had the best of situations happen to him, so he's a troublemaker. My daughter, she suffers from bipolar syndrome, and she goes into pseudo seizures. Last year, she had a pseudo seizure, so I'm calling 911, telling them I need an ambulance because my daughter is having a seizure, and we couldn't get her to come out of it. They sent to my house, because of the history with my son, they sent 5 squad cars to my house, would not allow the ambulance to come to my house to check on my daughter, because they had to come in my house to clear the scene. And I kept telling them, my daughter, she's hurting. So that, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But it's like, if they did that for my daughter, and even though it was a pseudo seizure, what would happen if I called the 911 because my husband is having a heart attack and they won't let medics come and take care of him and he dies? That's what I get scared about. I get scared because I don't know what would happen. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating because you don't know. And you have neighbors that nothing like that happens to them. You know, they can sit up there and they can cuss out cops, they can do whatever they want to. But because we're black, we have to have we have different standards on how we're treated and what happens to us. And it's not right. It's not right. And I want the younger generation to understand that, yes, you have rights, but at the end of the day, your prime mission is to get out of a situation alive. You live to fight another day. That's my goal for this, you know, for them. And we tell our kids all the time, come home safely. Just come home safely.
Keep your mouth shut. You're in a confrontation with the police. Keep your mouth shut. Me, I'm a little more open, a little more friendly, because I believe in giving people the benefit of a doubt. We do have a problem. We have a huge problem with police brutality in the black community. And I tell people all the time, Malcolm X talked about it back in the 50s, early 60s. And it's a YouTube clip out there. It's police brutality in the media. The media stokes the environment, sets the tone. And by that, the police now have the ability to treat people of color any kind of way. You know, whether it be it used to be, was it you're innocent until proven guilty? If you're black, you're guilty until proven innocent. And the guilt comes along with 9 times out of 10, they're gonna have a gun and they're ready to shoot you. When we look at all these individuals who commit these mass shootings, and they're not people of color, and they come out unscathed. They don't have a nick, a notch. They look like they just walked across the street. A black person can get in a confrontation, and they don't have to say anything, but they'll be bruised, they'll be beat, and at worst, they'll be shot and killed. And those are the things that we have to remind, not just us as a people, that the world does not see us the same. And we do not have the same benefits. I don't care what the Constitution might say, what the laws may say. When you're out there with that police officer, he is judge, jury, and executioner. Too many times we've seen that. I got friends from across the board. You name it, I got friends. I treat everybody with respect and dignity because that was how I was raised. And I will give you the benefit of doubt. And if we have a problem, I know how to leave you alone because it's not worth my effort or my energy. So I'm good with that. But in the meantime, I do believe I have a purpose, a mission to do what I can so that I can help other people.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm here.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And this just goes into our last couple of questions here, and then kind of open it up. But have you ever, before I jump into that, have you ever shared these stories with, people in your life, whether it was your children or
Oh, yes.
folks? So this isn't just
No, but it's part of the life lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to make sure that our family understands the importance of what we try to say. So we bring these lessons home. There's no reason to candy coat this thing because they see it, they get frustrated. They say, this is not the first and it won't be the last. We just need for you to be smart about how you deal with them.
And so now kind of just looking more into whether in terms of just the aftermath of this, but you kind of mentioned we want to talk a little bit about this concept of justice, this idea of justice, and how would you go about pursuing justice today from this experience or experiences? When I ask about one experience, many others unfortunately come to play there. It's just like, it just seems that justice is kind of hard to come by.
Absolutely.
When you do look for justice, it kind of seems to not be swung in your favor.
Right.
As you mentioned, the tragic story with your daughter, the fact that even happens is just unfathomable. And so kind of looking about what this concept of justice means to you and how you kind of go about looking for that, if you do, in light of such things, or is this something that you just mentioned, just keep your head kind of tucked down, you live another day?
Well, when we were traveling, it makes it difficult because you need to be a part of that jurisdiction to actually be a part of the fight. And then you got to have the resources to fight. And then you would have to hope that the individuals in that jurisdiction are willing to take up to champion your cause. Now we have the situation, we see it so many times where if Joey gets shot and killed by the police, and wrong, let's say on a bad shooting, the first thing the media does is to grab images of Joey in any way, form, or fashion in a negative light. Regardless if Joey might have been a 4-point student, a high school phenom in the sports world, they will find, and then they will talk about him in the press in such a negative connotation as to sway the image of Joey as though he deserved to be in this position, and then by that that story, then the community says, well, Joey probably was doing some drugs, or because they're shaping this image of Joey, and it's no longer the police that are being investigated. What should be the issue is trying to defend Joey's image in the world. Well, Joey is the victim. Why must we go through so much effort to defend Joey, and Joey is the victim? Let's focus on the shooting. What happened? Why did it happen? And I hate to hear it's a tragic mistake, and we're going to have all the training that's possible so that we prevent this from future occurrences. Too many times, that's always the standard issue. So it's very difficult to believe that in this current environment that the police actually have the best interests of the black community at hand until you show us otherwise. You start showing some true convictions, then we'll say, there's a possibility that justice can be obtained. But for the most part, we see, was the gentleman in South Carolina, Scott, got shot in the back, and the police officer, that one went to jail. But the fact that we had to go through this so much to show him being shot in the back, but yet he was assaulting a police officer, and that's why he had to shoot him. Come on now. But that's the world we live in. So again, we put everything out there, whether our friends, family, whatever, conversations with our peers. We try to keep the knowledge base growing so that we don't get caught up in the facade that all lives are equal, when they're really not in the real world.
Yeah, well, for justice, I just hope that one day we can go back to a time where you're heard first before action is taken. It used to be a time where if you called on, the police to come to help out, they listened to you first. They listened to find out what was actually going on. That's, they don't do that anymore. And I don't know why they feel that they have to be so fearful that they're coming into a situation where, people of color are out to get them. If we're calling you, it's because we need your help. We don't want to become a victim when we are already being a victim, because that's why we called you to begin with. So now we got to figure out who's really going to be on our side, who's really going to champion our cause and help us out when we need you.
So in light of whether, various setbacks, triumphs, different successes, mobilization efforts, all these things that you see, are you, just to kind of put it out there, individually, are you hopeful for a better tomorrow to come in light of much of the scars that we've seen from the past? Are you hopeful? Do you keep some element of hope, or are you?
I try.
Yeah.
I try because we have grandchildren. We have grandchildren, and I want them to have a hope for the future. But as things go, I don't know if my grandson will make it. And that's just to be honest. Because he's black and he's already considered a threat to society.
And he likes to talk.
And he likes to talk. He is a talker. But that shouldn't be held against him. He should be allowed to grow up and to try to make something of his life. And I don't know what the future holds. And I don't know, he could be one of those people that turn out to do mischievous things and get in trouble. But at least give him a chance.
Yeah, I believe there's a possibility. And in very few cases now are starting to flip in terms of the justice for the victim, but very few. When you have police unions who stand up and want to champion bad cops and good cops who are afraid or refuse to stand up against bad cops. It's always amazing to me when you watch these episodes where, just say there's a beating involved and there's multiple cops there. Nobody ever gets the ones who are present, because at some way, form, or fashion, they're either accomplices or they're witnesses. But we don't ever get them involved in the story. It's always the one who's either the perpetrator or the victim? Well, if you have somebody who's shown to beat on John, then those who allow the cop to beat on John are accomplices. Because they're supposed to be, their first mission is to secure the setting. So you basically have put the situation to take place. So you're an accomplice. How come they don't receive any misconduct or not enough? And I've always said, if you got a bad cop or bad shooting, get them where it counts. Take money from the police. Impact their benevolence fund. You got lawsuits, insurances that can be impacted. Get them where it counts. That way, they'll feel compelled to speak up because it impacts their retirement fund. Let's try that, or some other measure, so that they don't feel compelled to just turn a blind eye or stick their head in the sand.
And kind of the last thing I want to ask is that, with regards to both of y'all's faith, does y'all's faith play any role in kind of like either the views you hold, the optimism that you may have, anything like that? If you can kind of just say a little bit about how your faith kind of plays a part through these adverse experiences and kind of getting through them and, you know, reflecting on them and going forward.
Yeah.
I say thank you, God, every day. I say thank you, God, for allowing me to wake up, to go about my day, to allow me to come home safely every day. Without God in my life, I don't know how I would survive. You know, I have to rely on my faith that He is going to bring me through any situation that comes about. Whether I don't see it at that time, but I still have to believe in it.
Yeah.
Because there's been times where I know that without Him protecting me, that I would feel lost. So I believe, I rely heavily on my faith.
Oh, absolutely. You know, they said, through my faith, I love all people. She'll tell you. She used to call me the unofficial mayor of San Antonio when I lived here because I didn't know a stranger. You know, I'd be down on the Riverwalk and you'd see the people on the Riverwalk starting to look up and try to figure things out, and I try to help them and point them in the direction that they're looking. You're looking for the Alamo, it's right around over here. And she said, "Why do you have to do that?" Because it's in my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm a giver. And I've always felt that if I have an opportunity, then I should help someone. So through those things, and like I said, that's foundation. I tell them all the time, waking up, knowing that she's well when I wake up, and the ability to get up every day and take care of myself are the three greatest blessings that we have, that I have. And before she leaves the house, mind you, if I'm awake, she doesn't leave the house without me praying over her.
Absolutely.
And I ask the Lord to look after her, protect her from the fools and bullies in the world, look after her vehicle as she travels along the highways and byways, and everything else, and just come home to her family every day. And so, yeah, faith is a very powerful foundation in our lives and in our marriage. And without it, we would not be where we are.
That's so true.
And this is just out of curiosity. Is there a particular part of Scripture that you feel personally speaks to you, or that you relate directly to, and that, you know, just that it just comes alive for you, and that's just like, it keeps you going?
Oh.
I gotta ask because I'm at a theological.
Yeah, I know.
I've gotta ask.
You say I can do all things?
Yeah.
Yes, I could do all things through God.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Is there anything else that you guys would like to mention that we may have not been able to address or anything? I'll kind of leave this last part just for you guys to maybe say some last words if you'd like. Any takeaways or anything like that?
For me, I guess that I just hope that this study, that when people look at these interviews, that they are able to garner something out of them, to take what we have all said and be able to use it and utilize it in their lives. And, say, oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that. Or I remember somebody saying, how they got out of the situation. Or, that's what I hope for.
And I take a deep breath. Understand that these are our experiences, and your experience will be totally different. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting home. Now, you can add to the confrontation, but when you add to the confrontation, you only increase the possibility of not making it home, or not making it home at all, or not making it home in the manner in which you expect to make it. So it's about survival, survival and risk management, as they would tell in my previous life. You want to do the necessary things to reduce your risk so that you could go on with your life and be what you're meant to be. That's what I hope that anyone who reviews these takes away from them.